Now, you didn't think I was going to forget about my OU A&M Bowl preview now, did you? Not in a million years. The Cotton Bowl, January 4th, from Jerry's World in Arlington, Cowboys Stadium. And believe it or not, the Sooners, for the first time in a while, are an underdog in a ball game. I can't remember the last time the Sooners were an underdog against anybody. Maybe back in the 09 season. If it was after that, please let me know, because I've researched. I can't remember the last time that the Sooners were an underdog to anybody. But according to Vegas, the Sooners are 4.5-point dogs to the Aggies, a former Big 12 rival, now in the SEC. And the A&M Aggies adapted pretty well to life in the SEC, when a lot of people, including yours truly, didn't think they would in year one. But the Aggies and the Sooners at 10-2, and other than the Notre Dame-Bama matchup and maybe the Kansas State-Oregon matchup, you could probably say that nationwide, this is the most attractive bowl matchup you're going to find. And it's not even a BCS game. January 4th, it's the Sooners and Aggies in the Cotton Bowl from Jerry's World in Arlington. The game will be on Fox. 7 o'clock kickoff. And again, A&M favored by 4.5 points. Before I break down the matchup, really quite a bit to dissect into. We've got to talk about the Sooner situation first. As you know, even though the Sooners haven't played a game since December 1st, that doesn't mean that things haven't happened in rapid fashion for the Sooners. A couple of incidences really worth talking about. Of course, Jalen Saunders, people are wondering what's going to happen with him. Is he going to be allowed to play? And the answer, and this really surprised me, is yes. If you don't know the situation with him, the terrific wide receiver / special teams player, the day after the TCU game, in which, by the way, he had over 100 yards receiving and a touchdown, the morning after the game, he and teammate Cortez Johnson, 2 in the morning, were pulled over on December 2nd for possession of marijuana. And a lot of people at that point thought, oh no, that means he ain't going to play in the game. And Bob Stoops, keep in mind, I think the world of the guy, okay? Not only for resurrecting Oklahoma football, which is obvious with the national championship, the tons of Big 12 championships, decisions he's made with personnel, coaches, players, and also his integrity as well. You know, the great things that he has done all these years, and I hope the guy stays for a very, very long time, okay? I'm so grateful for the guy. But he made a pretty interesting decision just recently in regards to Saunders. He's going to let the guy play. And I find that pretty interesting. I'm pretty puzzled by it. Maybe I don't know all the situation. Maybe I don't know the exact situation, okay? Maybe I don't know all the specifics. Maybe the marijuana didn't belong to him. I don't know. But the questions I guess I have about this story is, if this were another player, somebody that didn't play as much or didn't play at all, would he have gotten the same treatment? If it were a game against Middle Tennessee State or Kansas, would Saunders have still been allowed to play? Again, these are things that, I ask myself, okay, after I hear about this story. And again, I think the world of Bob Stoops, okay? I really do. But these are things that I just kept asking myself when I heard that Saunders was allowed to play. Because, again, I thought that once this story broke a few weeks ago, that, he wasn't going to be allowed to go, because, marijuana possession charge might be a misdemeanor, but still, if other players get into that trouble, what happens to them? So I guess every case is different. I guess that's the only way we can answer it. From what I understood, this is the first time Saunders has been in trouble with the team, unlike Stacey McGee, who you might have heard. That's the other story back on Christmas Eve, when he got in trouble for driving under the influence with a suspended license. And by the way, he was in trouble last year as well for marijuana possession, and he will not be making the trip to the Cotton Bowl, which really hurts the Sooners from that defensive line perspective. And we'll talk more about those details as far as that when we break down A&M's offensive line later on. But getting back to Saunders, this is the first time he's been in trouble. Again, we don't know all the specifics. Bob Stoops knows more about discipline when it comes to players than I do, and he knows more about this particular case than I do. But again, I find the decision interesting, and Saunders is going to be allowed to play in this particular game. If you have your 2 cents on this situation with Saunders, I would love to hear it. You can add it in the comments part. But again, I have my questions about it. Saunders will be playing in the Cotton Bowl. And by the way, for Saunders, his legal troubles aren't over yet. January the 8th, he's got to appear in district court just 4 days after the Cotton Bowl. So for the Sooners, of course, they ended the season with 4 straight wins: Baylor, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, as well as TCU. Had to have those wins to get to 10. Almost got that BCS bid, and hopefully the Sooners have that sting of getting snubbed out of BCS bid out of their system. Hopefully they're not thinking, dang, Northern Illinois. It's okay to think that a day or two after the BCS snubbed you, but hopefully that sting only lasted a day and a half or 2 days at the most. Hopefully you're fully focused on Arlington, on the Texas A&M Aggies, and the Cotton Bowl, because this is a pretty prestigious bowl game. Pays about $8 million. It's the best non-BCS bowl game by far. It'll be on a Friday night. It'll be on a national television stage. You'll be the only game on during that time. Trust me, it is a pretty festive bowl atmosphere. Nearly 100,000. I think over 100,000 at that stadium. And by the way, the thing's been sold out for a while as well. So it's going to be something else. Again, the Sooners got a little momentum entering this game. And one thing we do know about Oklahoma this year, they have had the ability to come from behind. We saw that in West Virginia. We saw that against Oklahoma State. And I think a big part of that is because of Landry Jones. Fourth quarter, he's shown that final full maturity and that confidence to do that. And also the offensive line, how critical they've been as far as pass protection. The number of wide receivers that have made critical catches when the ball wasn't exactly on target. This Sooner team, and I don't know how long you can continue to live on that tightrope of being from behind and being able to win, but against West Virginia and Oklahoma State, they were able to do that. So for the Sooners, previous teams may not have been able to come from behind in the fourth quarter because the Sooners under Bob Stoops haven't really been known for coming from behind. But this team has been. And that's the one refreshing thing about this Sooner squad. When you look back at 2012, that's going to be one of their trademarks, coming from behind, being able to win in the fourth quarter. And against TCU, even though they weren't behind, they were able to hold on. Defense was able to come through in the clutch and be able to win. So they've had some close victories over the last 3 weeks, but they've been able to do it. And you have to wonder, can they do it against Texas A&M? A lot of people think it's going to be a close game. I think it is. And can they continue to win that way, or will it run out? That's going to be the $64,000 question. Playing against this A&M defense, A&M's defense is not bad, but when you compare them to the likes of the Alabamas, the LSUs, the South Carolinas, as well as the Floridas, I would probably say Florida, LSU, and Alabama because they're the best defenses in the SEC. I would say that A&M's not quite on that level, especially as far as pass defense goes. I would say that A&M's weakness is probably pass defense, 79th in the country in terms of pass D, giving up about a little over 250 yards of D in terms of through the air per ball game. I think this is where Landry Jones, provided that he gets the protection, can have a really big ball game. This is where Jalen Saunders will help. This is obviously where Kenny Steele can help too. And also, you got the freshman out there in Sterling Shepard. He can help. Trey Millard's a guy that I don't think that'll get talked about near enough. Obviously, throwing the ball to him out of the backfield, he could be a factor as well in this ball game. Sooners can't ignore the run game either. As far as running the ball, A&M's not too bad. They give about 140 yards of rushing per game. That's a little bit above average. A&M's strength, I think, is probably going to be getting to the quarterback. DeMontre Moore leads the team in tackles with 80. He's a terrific defensive end. He'll be playing in the NFL. He'll be a high draft pick coming up. And a guy that OU has seen in the past when they've played against A&M in those Big 12 matchups before, Sean Porter from the linebacker position. They have to be ready for him. So the big thing will be pass protection. OU can do that. I think they'll be fine. Otherwise, for Landry Jones, it could be a pretty tough time because he's primarily a pocket passer. So the tackles for Oklahoma, for Lane Johnson and company, it'll be a pretty, it'll be a challenge for those guys. But OU has been pretty strong this year in terms of protecting Landry Jones. So that could be a favorable matchup for the Sooners. What could be an unfavorable matchup, and the reason why I think the Sooners are an underdog in this game, is because of A&M's offense, particularly the offensive line of A&M, one of the best in the country. You might remember Luke Jokel from years past when I did my Big 12 reviews. I remember Jokel when he was a true freshman starter, and now here he is, a few years later, he is first-team All-American. The guy has lived up to the hype. And also, the other tackle for A&M, Jake Matthews, these guys are amongst the best tackle tandems you're going to find in the country. A&M's offensive line is that good. The running game, not the strength of their team, but it's not just flat-out terrible. Christian Michael, he's a veteran starter. Got hurt the latter part of last year, but able to stay a little bit healthier this year as well. Ben Molina is also a good running back. Those guys have combined for a little over 1,000 yards. Now, the wide receivers for A&M are lethal. At least 8 A&M receivers this year have caught at least one touchdown pass. The best of the bunch might be Mike Evans. A little over 1,000 yards receiving this year, and he's had 75 receptions. You can't forget about a guy that burned OU 2 years ago in that matchup at College Station when the Aggies beat the Sooners. That was Ryan Swope. Swope, yeah, that guy's a speedster. Uzome Nwachuku, he has lots of speed as well. Those two guys are back. And I know that OU beat A&M last year, but 2 years ago, A&M beat the Sooners at College Station. So you can kind of say this is a rubber match if you're looking at those previous two matchups between these two teams. And, of course, the big difference for A&M has been the fact that they've been able to run a spread offense as opposed to that I formation that we saw in previous years. Johnny Manzell, Johnny Football, the guy improvises so well. Terrific arm, but he's one of those guys where even if you have the receivers covered, he can take out of the pocket, and he can just make things happen on his feet. Fast quarterback. The guy thinks really quick. And ask the Alabama defense. He shredded them up. And nobody thought that A&M, as a double-digit underdog, could go into Bama and win and put up a lot of points against that Tide defense. And that's exactly what Manzell and the Aggie crew did. So A&M's offense, even though Cliff Kingsbury, their offensive coordinator, even though he won't be there, he took the head coaching job at Texas Tech, his alma mater. A&M's offense still, they'll still have that Texas Tech offensive type philosophy, and I still think the A&M offense in this game, even without Kingsbury, will still be just fine. This is going to be a high-scoring matchup, ladies and gentlemen. Get ready for a lot of points. 38 points in this game, or 42, may not be enough. I think for the OU defense, which gave up a lot of points against West Virginia and against Oklahoma State, you're going against an offensive line A&M that's going to be better than the offensive lines that Oklahoma State and West Virginia had. And I think from this perspective, this matchup really worries me just because of the defensive line, which hasn't been terrific all year for OU. The linebacking core, I would love to see Frank Shannon play a little bit more in this game than Tom Ward. Don't know if that's going to happen. I think the front seven for Oklahoma, I don't think they match up too well in this ball game. But maybe Mike Stoops and company, they've got to show some different things. They've got to show different looks, try to confuse Manzell. I think that's going to be the big key in this game. You can't just run a standard defense. You can't just run what you've been running all, for the latter part of this season against those pass-happy offenses. If you do, Manzell and company will just absolutely shred you big time. We'll see if Oklahoma has some different things. Give different looks to Manzell, and you got to take chances. You got to blitz. You can't just sit back there and let Manzell eat you alive. My final thoughts on this ball game, like I said, get ready for pinball-like scoring. It's going to be an exciting Cotton Bowl game. And while I think Landry Jones and company are going to have a terrific offensive game, I wouldn't be surprised if they even put 42 points on the board. This is a type of ball game from a defensive standpoint from Oklahoma that really, really worries me. And I do it very rarely, but I'm picking against OU in this game. I think A&M will have a little bit too much offensively. And unless they can contain Johnny Manzell, I don't see the Oklahoma defense having a lot of success against him. I've got A&M winning this game 48-42. But keep in mind that I have not picked too well this year. So maybe if you're an OU fan, don't get mad at me. I had a losing record in picks this year, okay? I didn't do well. I stunk. As a matter of fact, I picked UCLA to beat Baylor in the Holiday Bowl, and we know what happened. I thought Tech would kill Minnesota in the Car Care Bowl, and Minnesota should have won that game. They should have won it. Texas Tech had to, they needed a good final 2 minutes of that game in order to pull that one off. So who knows? Who knows? I could be completely wrong. I'll be rooting for OU to win. But my mind says that the OU defense against offenses like this don't match up well. And I've got to go with what I've seen lately. And this is just not a good matchup, especially from the offensive line perspective of A&M. OU's defensive line they need to show a little bit more against this A&M offensive line. Just looking at it on paper, I'm not seeing where it's going to come from. So that's my breakdown of the Cotton Bowl. My post-game show should be late Friday night or early Saturday morning. Probably going to be late Friday, just an hour after the Cotton Bowl. Well, that'll be my final show of the season. Go Sooners, and it will be the Aggies and Sooners on January 4th in the Cotton Bowl from Arlington, Texas. Boomer Sooner, and Happy New Year.